Okay, so thank you, everybody, for coming, and thank you, Tony and David Zarghami. You know, I'm not gonna even introduce them, I'm gonna let them introduce themselves, so if you can just, maybe tell everybody here and on Zoom land, a little bit about you guys, where you are now, and then we'll get into, how everything began, so.
I love it. You wanna start?
Yeah, well, thanks for having us. Good to see you guys. I haven't been to the space yet, and it's beautiful. So kudos to you all. This is a phenomenal professional work environment. And thanks for guys for taking some time on a Friday to grow, and we're honored and humbled to be able to help with that. So our goal is to bring as much value we can to the hour, and so certainly ask away. Let us know how we can help. We've certainly made tons of mistakes and figured out lots of stuff not to do and a few things to do. And so if any of that journey can help you guys get there faster with less bumps in the road, that would certainly be awesome. Certainly learn some stuff from you guys. So thanks for having us.
Yes.
Just our background, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if you wanna tell them, like, what does your real estate business look like today, and then we're gonna go back a little bit in history to where we can.
Yeah, so we have Zarghami Group. We have approximately 15 agents, 8 full-time staff, a few other pieces to that puzzle. We're blessed to be, if not the top sales group in the market. This past few years, we're right there. So it's been a fun journey. That's the now. Tony and I, they're just really privileged to work with some really awesome people, and we've been able to have our own space. We now have our own office off of Fruitville and Cattleman, within our KW brokerage, of course, under the umbrella of that. But we have our own space, which has been an awesome development for us. I think, Cesar, what would you add?
Yeah, I would say a lot of you know from my listing class that I teach, but we started out as teachers. I was a 4th grade teacher. David taught middle school. We started flipping houses and thought, well, that's kind of fun. Maybe we should do that. We're making some money, and I could maybe get into real estate. And I remember we were at a date night, remember, Barnes and Noble, and we kind of flipped it, who's gonna do this real estate thing first? And I won and got into real estate first, and was really lucky to get pretty productive early on. And you joined me a year and a half later, a year later, got your lay. That was 17 years ago. And then we moved here 12 years ago. David's way better with numbers. You will see. He's gonna look at me half of this time like, that's not right.
Tony doesn't let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Amen. So yeah,
so I've learned to just let it slide.
Yeah, when we moved here, how many years ago did we move here?
12, 13.
12, 13 years ago, knowing my mom and my dad. Those were our network of people, and have built this in the last and joined Keller Williams, moved here at the same time, and built this in the last 13 years.
And but you started, so you, when you got out of your when you got out of the teaching, you started in real estate in North Carolina.
Yeah, we did.
So tell me about that journey. You went from flipping to selling.
Yeah.
And where did you begin? What did it look like? And how did that evolve?
You remember one of the first houses we flipped? We went and I listed it. David was in charge of the flipping, and I listed it as an Armstrong. And we went and got to closing. And we're we did it. It was our 3rd one. And that was 3 days after closing. We're did you go get the staging furniture? And we're nope, sure did. Because we didn't spend $400 at Target to stage it. Neither of us went and got any of that stuff, which we lost in the sale.
We invested it in that deal.
We invested it in that deal.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, so I was teaching full-time math. Tony had been working for a consulting company, and she was on the phone. All this was way before Zoom. But she was just on the phone all day, and she was like, I need to get out of this house. I need to go do something. And so I think that's where I had read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. And as a teacher, you didn't have a lot of financial control over your future financial destiny. And so the book helped me understand the power and the necessity to grab the reins of building our financial trajectory. And so, yeah, we started investing in real estate. Then Tony got licensed and, started going there. You mentioned that you were lucky. And of course, she wasn't lucky. She busted her ass, as Tony does and still does, to make great things happen, and it's just as I'm sure all of you do. And of course she made her luck in that regard. And then I followed her. I was doing the buy ugly houses kind of situation for an acquisitions company, and I just got really tired of being in really ugly situations. From teaching, we loved helping kids. We actually met working for a tutoring company, and so working for a tutoring company, you're dealing with situations where a kid is struggling in school, and then they come in and you gotta help them. And that's great, but then I was like, but I need to be in a classroom because everything's going bad in the classroom. So then we went to go teach, and I ended up teaching middle school. But then when you realize, you teach them in the classroom, you only have an hour a day and their parents are breaking them in other ways and all this stuff happening. We don't have that much influence, right? Let's have our own humans. And then we can, we can work on them, but I miss the teaching part. And that's what I love about what we do in real estate is we get to help people and teach them and educate them and guide them through a very significant life milestone that is really stamped into their memory book, right? You don't forget your first real estate experience. You don't forget the house that you bought.
My parents bought a house when I was 12, moved me. I was furious at them for years, but I remember the real estate agent bought my parents a coffee maker. Her name was Kathy Armstrong, and I was 12. And that experience like
It's
still
just like
sticks in my head.
seared in your
Yeah,
brain.
I'm
Yeah,
a coffee
Kathy what?
Armstrong.
Kathy Armstrong.
Just
There
like
you go.
Just like the
the
street.
Yeah,
Just like the street.
That's like, that's.
Yeah, see, you were destined to sell that home.
Sell that house when I was really-
So you guys, what brokerage were you at up there, and did you have a team up in North Carolina?
So Tony did the thing where you go to real estate school and then you join the place where the real estate school is. So she did that and then kind of figured out some things, didn't really have any mentorship. And then she met an agent in town who was a big deal, and he kind of took her under his wing and became the first mentor. And he had bought his franchise and made it independent. And then he offered Tony, because he saw her trajectory, he offered her and I guess me, a partnership in that independent brokerage. Yeah, so we co-owned an independent brokerage.
They call them boutique
in that
brokerages
town.
here in
Boutique
Florida.
brokerage, yes.
Yeah.
In that town, we did not build a team. Tony had her own assistant and her own book of business. I had my own assistant and my own book of business. We crossed like this, and yet what we didn't know is what we were doing is we were having our first year in real estate, 5 years in a row,
times,
right?
yes.
Doing it 5 times without building systems and processes to help you do a thing better and faster and easier because you're repeating that thing over and over.
And Dave would be like, what are you doing today? And I'd say, oh, I have a closing. He knew nothing about it because we just each did our line of business and we did not do anything together. We didn't know a team thing was a thing. We just knew solo agency was a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we started having some friction with that business partner because it's hard enough when you're married to your business partner. But when you're not married to a business partner, you don't have that glue that holds you together no matter what. So she gave me a look.
You sure did.
And it's also glorious. So anyway, we're having some friction there and realizing we probably needed to figure out a different path. And the Keller Williams in our town in North Carolina approached us about becoming a core investor, and that's where we went and educated ourselves on the Keller Williams model and the MREA. And the more we learned, we were like, yep, we have to do that. But he did not want to have us go be crosstown rivals, so it got really ugly. And so we took a real hard look at our life and where we were at. Tony's parents had retired to Sarasota, and they were not leaving to come see us. Meaning that we wanted them to move and be with us, and we couldn't get them to leave Sarasota. So we were like, all right, universe, you can't beat them, join them. And so we plugged down here, we jumped in and we joined KW in 2013 and moved down here. And that's where we said, okay, we have to start over anyway. And so why not do it smarter? Why not take this book and this model that says, here's how to build out a real estate. We call it a team, but it's not a team, it's a business, right? If you think of any other business, you don't call it a team. You don't go to the EPA or the doctor's practice, right? Or anything else. You don't say they have a team. You just say that's the business, right? It's only weird in real estate because it's not the norm. The norm is the single, gonna do everything role, and traditionally, right? Especially Sarasota can skew that way. But we paid attention to that model, and that's been our journey for the last 12 years, is how do we do this team thing? And that's I think where we're here to talk about.
Yeah, so what I want you guys to hear, the first part, and then I'm gonna ask questions around it, is in 2013, they moved to Florida and they knew her parents, and that's it.
Guess who were our second clients?
Work that sphere.
My
That's
parents.
right, yeah.
Guess who did not work with them? I wasn't working with my parents. Don't work with your parents. I made David work with my parents. I'm like, I'm not touching that. Yeah.
But if you don't have a spouse, work with your parents.
Oh,
Right, exactly. No, don't refer to somebody else, yeah. So many, not all, but many people in this room have transplanted from another, whether they did real estate somewhere else or not, but they've moved from
Weird
another
people,
location.
yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
So tell us, because you didn't have a job, you didn't have anything else, it was real estate or bust.
Yeah.
So what did you do? What were the steps you did then
Mhm.
that caused you to earn business and stay in business?
Yeah.
I think it's such a great question, guys. Please we're not preaching that this is how you have to do it. There's so many different ways to do real estate. We did not have another choice. We did not have another job. We didn't have a spouse that had another job. We didn't have health insurance. We had a 2-year-old.
We bought a house.
We bought a big old fancy house that we thought we could afford that we probably couldn't. Like the year that we moved here was the hardest professional year we've ever had because we were like, we did that for 5 years north. I was on billboards. Like we can, and it was really hard. The thing that really worked for us is we did not have a backup plan. Like we had no choice but to do this thing and figure it out really quickly because we had a child and a house that we had to support.
Prices in Jacksonville, North Carolina were much lower than when we moved here.
149 was the average.
Yeah, so we came here and invested in call it $400,000 house, but at the time, that was 4 times anything we'd ever thought about living in. So it felt like this extreme venture. And like, so we were not only increasing our expenses, we were going from a very comfortable situation where we were known and established and, she was the top 5 agent in that marketplace out of 400 realtors. I'm not discouraging them, but I'm just saying, smaller pond,
Yeah.
big fish, smaller pond. And then we jumped in here and we knew nobody. And it's there at the time, probably 5,000-6,000 realtors, right? And different markets, and there's waterfront, there's luxury, and there's condos, and there's second homes and
It was
snowbirds.
an
and
HOA
retirees
and
and-
a stopple. I don't know.
Yeah, we thought the whole real estate market was first time military home buyers using 100% VA loans. That was all of our deal in North Carolina. So we realized how little we knew. And we moved down here and we had some money saved, which was sort of our get started fund. And for the first 8 to 10 months, we bled it out and just watched it decrease every single month. And I remember, I always tell this story to the agents that I'm talking to on my team or outside that are having their moment of struggle. Because like Tony said, that first year was the hardest professional year of our lives. I would never choose to do it again. And we grew so much from it because of what you have to do to get through that and reinvent yourself and become this thing. And I remember this conversation with this coach. It was May, so we moved here in November. It was May, we were, like I said, probably bled out 5 months of living expenses, not much income. I got a contract. It was for a condo in a place called Vizcaya in Bradenton. And I had this big win, my sales puffed out, feeling good. And then the guy got into the HOA stuff and he wanted like his kids and his family to be able to come down and use it. And once he dug into the documents, it turned out that was a no-go. You had to be the owner or you had to be with the owner. You couldn't just come use this condo. So he pulled the plug. And as hard as it is to not have a real estate deal, it's so much harder to get one and then lose it, right? That kick in the teeth. And man, it hit me so hard. And I remember talking to my coach on the phone. I tell you exactly where we're sitting. And I told him, I said, I've never worked harder in my life for nothing. Like I've never worked so hard and gotten absolutely nothing. And that was my story at the time. And his response was, I understand that it feels like that right now, but he said that you have no way to value the future value of the seeds that you are planting and have planted and that will bear fruit at some point in the future. And we couldn't tell you exactly when or which one. But that's a story I tell often because it's so common for me to talk to real estate agents on our team otherwise who are at that struggle point, right? And they're like, I am working so hard, I'm crushing it, and I'm not feeling a return on this. And so I like to go back to that space because I've talked to many of them who were in that space and we had the same conversation. And then 6 months later, they're like, you were right. Something happened, this popped, or this thing, or this person that called that they moved to Jupiter instead of Sarasota and I wasted all that time, but then they sent their friend, right? You just never know. And so you have to have faith that the daily activities that you're doing, the conversations that you're having, the good energy you're putting out into the world is going to bear fruit. And the biggest challenge is you just don't know exactly when and where and what. But to Tony's point, we had no choice but to just keep our head down and grind away until it started clicking.
So what were those daily activities?
Yeah.
Where did you find your business in a marketplace that you knew nobody but
Can
parents?
I say one thing too?
Yeah.
You said something really interesting. We are bleeding, like we were at the end of our savings, like what are we going to do? And we were paying $1,000 a month for a maths coach. Like that's how important coaching is in our world because we had nothing and no business and yet we still committed to a coach. Because guys, when you're in it, like you can't see more than a couple feet in front of you. You can't see more than your next deal in front of you. And a coach will, and we invest heavily in coaching still, like we'll let you come up and see the path that you need to be on. So we are such advocates of coaching. When we didn't have money, we still paid a maths coach every single month.
I think our current coaching budget is like 8,000 to 10,000.
A month,
So
yeah,
it's
that
like,
we
it's
spend on
not,
coaching.
you don't get to a point where you are done with that.
Yeah.
We've only leaned in harder
Mhm.
because the challenges are different.
Yeah.
So I'll
Very
answer your
limited.
question, but I'm also gonna give a caveat. Ours was a little different because we came from an established real estate business you know, that was our sole source of income. We did very well. We were comfortable in North Carolina. And then we had to get here, and our mission was like, get back to where we were. So our approach was different than maybe people that didn't have the same constraints as ours, but we, at the time it was called Boomtown, it was a big website program that you could buy pay-per-click leads and feed them through your buyer site. So we put a lot of money into Boomtown. I think we had a couple $1,000s a month spend just to generate those opportunities. But it takes a while. You know, you have a $3.6 million closing next Friday. That we were telling our team this morning, that guy's bought 3 or 4 or 5 properties with us over the years, and he was a pay-per-click Boomtown lead from probably our first year in town.
Yes.
You know, so those are the fun stories that, you know, but at that moment, you never knew what was gonna come from it. But that was our first focus. We didn't touch a listing until 6 months in, only because of lack of confidence. It was all headspace. And if I had to redo the first year again, I'd be like, get as many listings as fast as you can, you know, but it was just, we have your confidence things, right?
That's awesome.
We were in our head about this new market, and we knew how to do it all up here, but when you move down to a different place, it's like going to a different country. Everything's weird. MLS buttons are all in different places, and you don't know who to call
Well,
for
and
the
sellers are
photographer.
interviewing you, buyers aren't really interviewing you, sellers are interviewing you, and I
Yeah.
was scared to death that someone would be like, how long have you been selling real
Right,
estate for?
how
I'd
many
be
have
like,
sold on this street? Right? Like, well, definitely 0, yeah. If there's a less than 0 number, that's our answer. So we had limiting beliefs like crazy on the listing side, and it took about 6 months to get there. So that was a mistake, but we went heavy on buyer leads, which is not there's no book that says do this.
Yeah.
Like that's not, yeah, it was just a confidence thing, but I would, you know, I think it's okay to focus on some of those, but I would highly recommend if we were gonna do it again.
Yeah.
You know, we would jump right in on the listing side.
So was Boomtown your only source of business?
Boomtown was our paid source, and then of course, you know, her parents bought a house. You know, and you're just, you know, getting out there. KW is beautiful about agent referrals, and so we started, you know, tapping into some of that.
You
Going
joined
to
a great networking, you joined a BNI group, which is like a.
yeah, that
that's
wasn't in year
still
1, but that was early on. Joined a BNI. BNI had some, it's good for a certain phase, and so that was good. But you gotta have 4 or 5 things going on.
Cause I was
You can't
Did
rely
you,
on one source.
those are
Yeah,
expired?
I was cold calling FSBOs and expires. It scared the hell out of me. I hated doing it. I would tremble when someone would answer, like you just want to dial, because then you feel like you're working. But when someone would answer, I would be scared out of my mind. But yeah, I was cold calling FSBOs and expires to work when we started to work on listings. My first listing was Dan Shea over in the Moorings, right here in Lakewood Ranch.
Yep.
And I was cold calling FSBOs and he answered, and I'm like, oh, why did you answer? I go through my little script and I somehow got an open appointment and I somehow got the listing. Remember, we held an open house, but we didn't know we needed a gate code for an open house in a gated community. But that was our first FSBO that we sold, and that really helped our confidence with selling Dan Shea.
Yeah, well, we got the appointment with them, and I remember we were in our pool, and we were like writing out what's our marketing plan for Florida listing, you know, so we could go and pitch them on it.
Yeah.
And so that just, you know, sometimes you guys jump into the fire, you know, which we'd done
Figure it
earlier,
out.
but we
Figure it
were like, let's map this out. Here's what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
And just map that out, and then that sort of became our future listing presentation.
So we didn't know at the time, but we were lead genning every day. I didn't know that's what it was called. I didn't know that's what you're supposed to be doing, but I still, Tony Zarghami, lead generate every single day. Like you have to be okay with the monotony that your job requires you to talk to people every day about real estate. Like as big and successful as you get, you can never stop the boring job of lead generation. And
Yeah,
so,
Gary Keller talks about that a lot, and
Yeah.
just making peace with the boredom of the repetition. But he said, you know, in this business, you have 2 jobs. What do you guys, what's the one job you all think about that people get into real estate for?
Should pretty houses and get a commission check.
Yeah. Do the fun stuff of helping the people buy the pretty houses or sell the pretty houses. But what's your other job?
Talking to people.
Yeah, in different words, finding the people that you get to help with the job you wanted, but it's 2 separate things. You can be the best doctor in the world and have 0 patients, and what good is all of that knowledge, right? And that's our deal in real estate. We're wanting to build our technical skills and hone our craft and understand all these pieces about the properties and financing and insurance and all of those components. It's 0 good to anyone if you don't have people to apply that knowledge to. So it's really, you have to put equal attention in both of those jobs.
well, and your lead gen will change over time. Like in the beginning, for 5 or 6 years, I just talked to strangers because that's all I knew. But when David said earlier on about like planting those seeds, then those strangers started to come back because they bought a house with us 5 years ago and I want to sell it. So I've put my time in, let me tell you, but my lead gen now, I don't cold call anybody anymore, but that's because I've been planting seeds for 12 years. It takes a very long, it's years of kind of the hard talking to people you don't know, keeping in touch with them, that's something I did very wrong in the beginning, is I didn't keep in touch with people. That's really the key to it. Paula, did you read it?
Yeah, you kind of just answered it. I was gonna ask what lead generation strategies are working for you now, and over time, what do you feel like you've changed over time?
The
Like this
premise-
worked for a period of
Yeah.
time and then you switched, and then like have you gone back, or what's really
We didn't
working
have
for
a
you now?
strategy. That's the problem. We didn't have a strategy. We used to use Vulcan and Mojo and pull data, and I cold call through people on my 3-line dialer, like. But then if I talk to someone, Julian, and they're like, I'm not ready now, I'd be like, okay, and I would just go on to my next one. When I should have kept your information, and I should have called you back a week later, and I should have sent you some listings, because there's, how many of us are there? 10,000, 9,000 in this board? If you don't stay top of mind, they will find someone else the minute that they are ready. And I did a great job of powering through calls. I felt like I was busy, but I wasn't building a depth of relationship with the people. I was just, oh, I'm in bold, I gotta talk to 100 people this week, right? I was not building a depth of relationship, which we did very wrong. We're very systematized about it now in our CRM, our system that holds all our data kind of forces us to be very systematized about how we connect with, when we connect with, what we say to our people. So that's been a game changer, is just not having a plan. And that's, I think, what we did very wrong in the beginning.
Yeah, but best advice is leaning hard into your database tool, whether it's Command or whatever you use, and just making sure that every human that you encounter and talk to gets put in there, and that you have some type of follow-up cadence with them. You know,
So do you have, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
You're good.
interrupt, but as you're talking about that and you're putting them in the plan.
Uh-huh.
When you guys are doing your follow-up and your calls and whatever you're doing with them, are we keeping notes on the last conversation, like, let's talk about your database.
Yeah,
Yeah, you have to. You know, it's a Carrie Keller always says it's a belly to belly game, a face to face game, right? You have to be, you know, connecting with people and following up. You know, it's a different animal on the buyer side and the seller side. You know, buyer side, they're not thinking about realtor. What are they thinking about? House, right? I call it house brain. They're in house brain, and we sort of, the service we're offering is not the thing they're buying. The thing they're buying is house, and we have to sort of intersect with them on their path in between here to house, you know, and that's how like Zillow built their model, because then they're like, I want this house. There's a button, okay, button agent, that's all they care about, get me this house. That's how open houses work, right? Because they're in house brain, and oh, you're the closest agent, you look nice, okay, let's be friends. And let's do this thing. So that's the tricky part on the buy side, is just how to get in between them before they make a silly decision, you know, in house brain. Whereas seller side, sellers are thinking about, I need a realtor to help me. And now they're, you know, so it's a different animal.
I would say something I think some people do wrong is it's like the give me everyone and I hope someone sticks. Our market has shifted so much in the last couple of years, especially in this inventory that we're in, that I've never seen inventory like this in the time we've been here. So many houses for sale, is a lot of people are going very wide when you need to go very deep. So in my particular, and I'm an active agent in this market, like I'm in this with you guys. In my pipeline, you can look at my primes, which mean I talk to you at least once a week. My actives mean I talk to you at least every 14 days. And my watches mean I talk to you at least every 30. If you are in one of those categories with me, I know the last thing we talked about, because my next conversation with you is, David, how was your trip with the kiddos? Or Erin, I know that you were you've taken a week, I know something to ask you to start that conversation. You can check my pipelines right now. Every person has a note of what I need to ask them first next time. Because if I just call and say, hey, John, are you ready to buy, sell, or invest in real estate? Like, that's what everybody's saying. You've got to build a relationship with them. So that's a huge key. Know what to ask them first.
Yeah, and I love that, and I wanna be careful we're not sending the wrong message here. It's not about, obviously, qualities in the quantity and more people you touch, but honestly, we can do a disservice by trying to hoard onto too many, and we have this problem on our team. We have a bunch of different lead sources, and so agents will like, give me all the people, because in case one of them will pop. But there is a major philosophy in the top teams that we network with and the coaching circles we're in about, you should not have more people in your database that you're following up with, then you can name their next vacation or something significant going on in their life.
Isn't 150 the key number of relationships you can
That
actually
feels
be in?
I don't
Way
know,
too
can you
many
track
for me.
150?
That feels like
You know,
way too many for me.
I hate to, maybe, you know, but I think
Yeah.
everyone in this room is gonna have a different capacity.
Sure,
Right,
yeah,
it's just, can you track 150 people's significant life events?
With notes?
With notes, you sure can, right? But that's the level, and I just heard this conference I was just at, they added a whole layer to it, they call it a refrigerator relationship. And a refrigerator relationship is someone that if they came over to your house, they would be comfortable enough with you to go get something out of your fridge without asking. I'm like, whoa, that's bold. Like, I have like 2 refrigerator relationships my whole life. But this guy on stage that was presenting, he was saying like, that's a whole different level. I'm not saying you need to get to that level with your real estate people, but I think it's an extreme end, but I think the vacation level, what's meaningful going on in their life? Do you know something about that versus, oh, you called about 123 Main Street. Are you still looking to buy a house?
Yeah.
You know, why were they interested in
Well,
that?
please hear, our database has 40,000 people in it, like our database is huge, but thank you, Caroline. But each person on our team, each agent has a specific number that is their focus. And then we've got safety nets around the other, 39,000. So, but you, as an agent, you've got to have a specific focus on the people that are most likely to do business with you next, for sure. Yes, ma'am.
39,000.
Is that number right?
Yes, probably. a little more.
So in the safety net that you have around, and you named 3 different tags, of prime and active to watch.
Yep.
On the group that you have.
Yep.
So you're picking these up and you're calling them.
Yep.
Do you incorporate the smart plans through your CRM with Keller Williams to quote the other ones?
Can you get out for a second? Get out. No, but our CRM system has that, where our team doesn't quite jive with commands the way we like, but our CRM system does have smart plans and all of those things. But I would caution you that don't rely on your drips to communicate with them. Make sure, the people that you're in relationship with, make sure you're not counting on the automated email to spring forward next weekend with your clocks. That's not the relationship you need to be building,
When it says you can unsubscribe from this, when I first did them on myself, that was my drawback, because I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I'd rather have something that I could go in and send myself as a bulk, where I sent that text to everybody versus having.
It's
something
customized,
that-
right?
Yeah.
Personal, and it's authentic
Yeah.
to you, because your people get to know you too, and when you can speak in your authentic voice, when you're posting on social media, or when you're sending a mass email or a text, when they know that that's you and that's your heart, that makes more, I think that's the way to go for sure. We can say
Just a couple points of nuance there. Love Command. Kittery does an awesome job in the growth of our team. There was just a certain point, you guys, if you've been with Kittery for a while, there's been a lot of, shifting and changing as they made it better. I'm sure if we started today, we would.
Oh, we'd jump right in.
Yeah, we'd jump it
For
right
sure.
in. Just at some point, we kind of branched off and then it didn't make sense to, circle back. So absolutely use that. I love what you're saying about, it's a balance between using the efficiencies of some automations without losing that human connection. So, that's where there's certain people in the database that just doesn't make sense to be writing personal one-off emails to.
Right.
That's just not the best use of your time, because the conversion percentage on the chances of them raising their hand are very small, not zero, which is why you use automation tools, because maybe they'll get the one at the right time. But people that you have some connection with, or you know what's going on with them, there's a lot of value in those personal texts, or shooting them a property. Hey, I just showed this property until it made me think of you. What do you think of the pool? Just even if it really isn't a great fit, what's that doing in their mind when they get that message from you?
The best thing you can do is stalk your people in your database and notice what they're looking at, what they're saving, what they're emailing to other people, and then calling them and being like, hey, did you notice that property over in Greenbrook and Lakewood Ranch just popped up? I know you wanted to be in that school system. They don't know that you know that they've clicked on it 4 times, but does that not build some street cred that, holy shit, Paula remembered I want to be in Greenbrook and Lakewood Ranch. So using the tools that you have to pay attention to what they're doing is amazing. Yeah, imagine if your financial advisor called you and like, hey, I know you've been wanting to do this and this and this, and I just noticed this stock did that. I think we should do that. Like, okay, that sounds great, because it feels like they're paying attention to what you're doing.
Because it's a relationship.
It's a
They're listening and they
relationship.
want to make sure that you understand, you're here for the value you provide.
Yeah.
So question, what are the top 2 to 3 things that an agent should be focusing on every day to grow a sustainable business?
I would say adding new people to your database. Like, how are you getting new humans that didn't otherwise know you into your world? And there's a bunch of ways that can look like, but I think, did I grow my database today? Did I add new people into that, where I got their contact information and now we can continue to follow up? And then the people that I have, how can I go deeper? How can I be thinking about them? How can I be sending them something that aligns with what they said was important to them, adding value? sending out other things you do, market reports, market updates, people want to hear from you. Gary Keller talks about be the local economist of choice. In order to do that, you have to understand the market, you have to be able to speak intelligently and confidently about what's happening. Julian, how's the real estate market?
It's pretty decent. A lot of inventory out there right now, so that means if you're looking at buying a home, you have your pick of the litter and negotiation is more on your side. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be selling either, there's never a wrong time to really sell. It's just making it fit what you're looking for pretty much.
Just got a round of applause.
I'll sit in front all the
Oh,
time.
I love that. What did he do that was awesome?
You jumped right into it, and you didn't have any fear, you sounded very confident.
Very confident.
I believe
Very
you.
confident, but did you get like, oh gee, that sucks right now? Like he was positive about it. And then he gave some nuance, like he told me it depends, right? Part of the answer is it depends. What are you looking to do?
Mhm.
Right? Are you buying? Are you selling? What's going on? But he didn't, he said, look, it's an awesome time to buy right now. Inventory's never been higher and so buyers have a lot of leverage on their side. But don't despair, sellers, right? We can still, with the right plan, the right strategy, the right guidance, sellers are able to get their property sold. And both of those are absolute statements of fact. Absolute statements of fact. I think our guidance and expertise matters more than ever right now. Just because you're a buyer doesn't mean it's automatic for you to go get the best price. Like if you don't know better, you could be leaving a lot of money on the table. And certainly the sellers need our expertise right now to make sure they play the right game and don't do silly things that sellers tend to do that are gonna cause them to sit on the market for a lot longer and add stress and frustration to their lives.
How many of you work with majority of buyers? Raise your hand for me. Are we buyer? How many of you work with the majority of sellers? The rest of you are just chilling? No, I'm just kidding.
I assume the rest are like, I don't identify as everything, I do both.
What I would say with buyers, I find that buyers are in overwhelm. There are too many listings for them to look through. There is too much on Zillow. It is too much. So having very strong strategy sessions more than once with a buyer is what you need to be doing right now. You do your initial strategy session and they want a 3-2 pool home in Lakewood Ranch. Great, there's 8 million of those. So now let's narrow it down into the type, what type of resort so having strategic more than once strategy sessions to narrow it down for your buyers right now is so important because they are in overwhelm with the amount of information coming at them every day.
And almost more important than the what questions, bedrooms, baths, neighborhood, community, is the why.
Yeah.
Right, why? Because they don't necessarily know all the things that they should be thinking of. They're telling you their best answer for right now. And then your job is to pass that through your filter of knowledge and say, okay, is this the thing that's gonna check those boxes for them? Or is there something else they're not considering that I can expand the mind and educate them on?
Yeah.
Because if you really understand the why, the low trap is to say that, I have to have a 4-bedroom, we gotta have a 4-bedroom house. Okay, what's important about the 4th bedroom? Well, we have guests that come to, okay, well, just so I understand, would a 3-bedroom with a den, then maybe do like a Murphy bedroom, could that work? Oh, well, yeah, I guess it could. How often are you expecting that? Well, probably only twice a year. Okay, so we could really expand your options if we were searching for a 3-bedroom with a den versus only a 4-bedroom and maybe fit that budget better. How would you feel? You're right, and just helping that, like, if you understand the constraint that they said, I must have a big yard. Cool, what's big? What does that mean? Why is that important? Okay, what if there was a park nearby, or they have to have the pool? What if it was right across the street from the community pool and you didn't have to take care of it? But you could literally walk across the street and be there in 5 seconds. Is that an option that opens up some doors and gets you a lower price point, gonna get you here and in your budget? So just really not pushing back, but testing anything they say, this is a must. Okay, so, do not show you a house with 3 bedrooms. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, crystal clear, got it. Like, they're in charge. Our job is to listen, to clarify. And, I always tell them, you can break the rules, I can't. So when you give me the set of rules, I'm gonna stick with it. You might find something outside of that, and that's fantastic.
And you just wanna understand what are those deal breakers, so I
Exactly.
understand, so we're not wasting your time or your money, right?
And then those can change in the process, that happens.
Exactly, so I kinda wanna
I have a
take.
question. Can I?
Oh,
I do have a
yeah.
question.
Yeah.
What does farming look like for the Zarghamis? And do you focus specifically on a niche, a farm area and the type of client?
Nope. I know.
Yeah, I'll give the longer answer. That's
Laura,
the
okay, go ahead.
So remember, our deal's a little different because we moved here and said, we're gonna grow this thing true like this. If we did it again and we weren't kind of having to accelerate at a certain speed, I think it's brilliant to farm. I shouldn't say, there's benefits to farming the neighborhood you live. there's benefits to that. Obviously you're there and you're in it, you see it. We've had enough signs of ours on our street that I don't ever wanna have a listing on our street again. Cause there's a certain
night.
life stress that comes in when you pull in your driveway and you're like, oh, we haven't sold that house yet. You know, and all the neighbors know we haven't sold, you know, and they probably don't think of it that way. That's just personal preference. There's other people that are like, I will sell every single house on my street because this is my spot and I own it. So some of that's personal preference, but obviously in a place where you're highly visible and you're plugged in the community, there's value. The general rules of thumb for farming are you want a neighborhood that has a certain percentage of turnover, you want transactions that go on there. You don't want to farm a neighborhood where everyone's going out in a wood box because they never, you guys hear that, right? I'm not leaving this place, it's in a box. But certain neighborhoods just have, if you look at the history, it gets, I'm gonna lose the benchmark. 20-30% turnover in a year, you know, year to year, but you can just compare, if you're gonna mail a campaign for here and there. Compare how many sales that are happening each year, and the other thing is, who already has mind share?
Yeah.
Who already has the space, if someone's been dominating that community for years and they're selling. You want that there's no one agent that's got more than 10% of the sales, and so those two together, there's enough units that make sense. And not our agent already dominating it, that makes it right for farming, but then the next thing is, you have to ask yourself, where do I wanna be totally known and associated for 5 years from now? And I never had an answer for that, cause we're like, geez, we serve Sarasota, Manatee County, and we just never had like total clarity, like, we wanna own this area. And we're gonna go in the 5-year mission for that. But for anyone that's considering farming, that's the question you have to ask yourself, cause it may, you know, the journey, you have to invest year over year to build something over time and really become the known person, cause right, at any given time, there's a very small percentage of people thinking about selling. And so you think about how that evolves, is you might get 1 this year, you know, 2 the next year, and then it just turns over, but it takes a while to get that established. So you gotta aim for where you wanna be, not necessarily where you're at. For all those complicated reasons, we've never made that our thing. For a whole lot of other reasons where we like life stress, apparently, we decided to do more of a mass marketing approach. And so that's why, we do TV and radio and stuff, and so we've got our farm effectively is the 2 counties, but. You know, it's just a different strategy, it's not right or wrong.
I have a question.
I know we have some Zoom questions, and we'll get to those in just a few minutes. I just had a couple things I want to make sure you guys keyed in on.
Can I say something about sellers?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, I'm taking this over.
That's okay.
Guys, on sellers, when you have listings, you have to talk to your sellers once a week. You don't want to, it's uncomfortable, you're gonna do everything in the world to avoid talking to your sellers. You have to have a voice-to-voice conversation with them every single week about all of your showings. And the fact that we don't have an offer means that we gotta pull our price or condition lever. No showings, it's not that I'm not marketing it, it means the market's not responding to our pricing. You gotta do a new CMA every week in your neighborhood, look, nothing else is sold. So are we gonna be the ones to make the market and make the price adjustment, or are we gonna wait and give the power away? Or 3 others have gone pending and yours hasn't, no one likes your house, what do we gotta change? You've got to talk to your sellers every single week about their listing and make adjustments every single week. Because if not, you're gonna invest time, energy, and money into a house that isn't gonna sell. They're gonna stop telling themselves a story that you're not doing anything, you're not really working, I see you on social media at Starbucks, you're not doing right. Talk to your sellers every single week. Yes, I hate it. It's my least favorite part of my job. I avoid it at all costs.
And it's the most effective.
And it's the
thing to
most
do, because
effective way to sell real
You have
estate.
real and direct conversations that aren't comfortable, but it helps them to make the tough decisions they need to make. You get price reductions, like next week showings, then contracts, and that's what keeps it going.
Yes.
And what's the number one reason that people say that they didn't choose the realtor again is because no communication.
Communication.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So on that, the last time we saw you, when we went to one of your trainings, you were talking about open houses. And I feel like you said you only did the one when the price dropped, was that?
We like to couple them with a price drop, because
Right.
open houses, we find aren't the number one way to sell a property, so
Right.
when we invest time, energy, our agents, time and
Yeah.
all of those things.
Yeah.
The sellers need to do something for us, so if we're gonna do an open house for you, we
Yeah.
need to couple it with a price reduction,
Okay.
because then it allows us to market open house and price change. So we
Okay.
really try and couple those together.
So if you had a seller
Mhm.
that was just insistent on, are you doing another open house this weekend? And it's a luxury listing and they're not really wanting to budge on the price.
Mhm.
How would you address that with them.
Yeah, I would need a lot more context as to how to address that, but
But I think you said a lot of expectation management in the
in
listing.
the listing appointment, it sounds like we missed an opportunity in the listing appointment that open houses are not going to be what sell your property.
Okay.
And that's the
Yeah.
idea, cause some come and
Yeah.
they say, I want it open every weekend, et cetera, et cetera.
We're not the team
We
for
know,
you,
we
if
know
that's the
from,
case.
we know from all the data
Yeah.
that, you
Yeah.
know, 1% of people choose the house, you know, from the
Yeah.
open house. And I'm gonna
Right.
argue, how many of those people didn't know the house existed, really, right? More than
Yeah.
likely, they knew of it or saw it somewhere, then they drove, caught an open house, but it's rare that you're just like, oh, house, let's buy it.
Right, yeah. of
Right, it's
course.
just, it's a very low probability game,
Yeah.
it's not zero.
Yeah.
So we'll put some energy into it, but we don't wanna mismanage expectations, that sellers think people are just gonna drive around and see it and buy it. Guys, where are you looking for anything you're about to buy?
Yeah, they're
Online.
You're online, like, you know, today they've got all the data in the palm of their hand.
Yeah.
So it's not, and you can see how in older times,
Well, I say
you
that.
had to drive around.
Yeah,
to-
an agent that tells you they're going to do open houses every weekend, they don't understand how buyers are shopping and they don't understand the current market that we're in. It's a very reactive way to sell real estate. Because I'm sitting there hoping someone walks in. I'm just way more proactive in my marketing and selling your property. So open houses are not going to be what are going to sell your property. If we do one, you need to do a price change. You gotta set that up at the listing appointment.
For ours in particular, I don't mean to take this over
Oh, it's
either,
okay.
but
Deal with it.
our sellers bought the house by going to this
How long
open
ago?
house 2 years ago.
Great, we're not in that market anymore.
Right,
Fantastic.
Yeah,
That's like the stock market 2 years ago. It
Yeah.
has nothing to do with the stock market
yeah,
today.
yeah.
Fantastic.
It's sort of saying like lightning struck that tree last year, you know, so like in there waiting for lightning to strike it again, like it could happen.
Right.
But we're playing the maximum probability game to help you get the best results in the shortest amount of time. That's not open houses.
Yeah. Okay.
Just the nuance I was trying to add, if there's people in the room that want to make that a big part of the business plan, then you tell the seller that's the best thing in the world.
Yeah.
So
When you're trying to get
catch the
buyer
nuance.
business, open houses are the best thing in the world. Do one every week. I did open houses
Yeah,
for 6
if-
years of my
If
life.
that's available to you and you've
Every
got the
weekend.
time and you can sit at your listing and you can tell the seller, I'm gonna do that, and that makes sense for you, then it's great. It's not a zero value add. It's just a very, you know, we know it's probably a 1% chance that that's gonna happen. So it's not zero. You might luck into it and hopefully you'll get some productivity done and maybe catch some buyer leads. And if you can help the seller see how that's valuable for them. Be careful though, if you know, if it's vacant, like go to town, there's seller strain for an open house, right? It's friction because they have to get it nice and neat and pretty, and then sometimes they park their van across the road and they're literally watching you the whole
like
time,
doctor.
telling people, so you
Yeah.
wanna be careful that you're not promising it in a situation where it's gonna add strain into their lifestyle. That's where it actually comes in, where they're relieved, when you educate them and say that, you know, it's an option, it's just, we have found it's not the most effective strategy. And here's how what we're gonna do better, and you don't have to be disrupted on a Sunday unless we know it's a qualified, pre-approved buyer who signed and hired a real estate professional. And they're coming in, you know, because they're serious about finding a home. That's the only time I'm gonna ask you to use your house.
Yeah.
So again, you have to play, you know, if they're happy to have you do it, or they want you to do it and you're good with the time, go for it. Well, the angle Tony's coming is a position where we're not trying to spend time on Sundays, you know, holding opens, and so we manage that expectation very firmly up front.
And again, you set that up in the listing appointment. So I wanna kind of shift a little bit, and we'll get to other questions, so hold those, so we don't go off on one tangent. So can you talk to us about, because you guys didn't launch in, well, the struggle bus year of 2013 down here, and then all of a sudden have 15 agents on your team and 8 admin. What was the journey of growth, and when did you realize you needed to find leverage and hire? And I understand it wasn't the best experience right from the get-go.
Well, how could it be, right? If
We know
any of us is trying to do the thing
We know
you've
what
never
we're doing.
done and do it the first time and have it be the best experience, like,
Right.
of course, you know, just like anything, like you get better the more you do something. You gotta screw it up a few times and learn along the way. Hopefully it's not a total train wreck,
Right.
but sometimes it is. And so, you know, the general model is you do everything until the point where you're on track for, people will tell you, but you know, 30 somewhere, depending on the person and their bandwidth and their capacity and their constraints, resources. You know, when you're on track to do about 30 deals a year is around when it makes sense to think about adding potentially a full-time assistant. You can start earlier than that with maybe some part-time leverage. But a full-time assistant is really a game changer in the real estate space because it's gonna change how you think about your time and your activities, you know, and so that first person is gonna take the busy work and the more manual data entry, you know, administrative tasks off your plate and free you up to do your highest paying work, which is what? So getting leads, finding leads, what else?
Connecting with people.
Yeah, building relationships, you know,
Negotiating.
getting people to hire you, negotiating.
Yep.
Showing properties, and all the things that, you know, can't be just replaced or outsourced, that are the meat of what we do. And so that's the magical first step, is that first person. A lot of people make the mistake of, oh, McKenna, you need a job, and I like you because I know you I know you from my personal world, and I know you need, I'm making this up, by the way. You know, but I like you and you need a job and I need an assistant, so that's a match made in heaven. That almost never works, right? It's the convenience hire for comfort. So if you're gonna think about hiring another person, there's a trade-off of response. Well, first you need to think about fit. So one of the things we've had to pay a lot of attention to is how people are wired. Keller Williams gives us a tool that you all have access to. Who knows what I'm talking about? The KPA, the Keller Personality Assessment. It's if your market center pays for it, you have unlimited access to this assessment. You should do it with your spouse. You should do it. You should take one if you have, who's taking their KPA? Okay.
David,
I think we did. I think we did.
Yes.
I think we did.
Do it again, give it to someone else in your world. I mean, it doesn't cost the market center anything to have you run the report. So you throw an email in, they do the thing. And then it takes all the data about them and it tells us how likely they are to be a good fit in the various roles in the real estate team. It's really a powerful tool, guys. I mean, does anyone love heartache and wasted money and stress and having to fire a person? If you love that stuff, don't worry about the KPA. You know, but if you like a shortcut to not screwing up, it's not a guarantee. But at least here's my analogy. I love sports analogies. Tom Brady, right? One of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. If he got hired to play offensive line, how do you think he would do? You would do, and if you're not sure about football, that's a position where you have to be huge and block. You know, Tom Brady's not huge and he throws the ball really well. But he's one of the greatest football players of all time. Wouldn't you be stupid not to hire him? For what though? For what job? Doesn't matter how much you like him, doesn't matter how close you are. Is he or she, this person, suited for the skills you're gonna ask? So your admin person, and it's all dialed in the KPA, but they need to be a checklist person. They need to like not go to ask to see their closet, ask to see their car, ask to see their garage, right? That'll tell you like how they operate in the world. And if all that stuff's a big ugly cluttered mess, that's not your person, right? You need the person that's like really dialed in and it's just how they operate. And ideally, there's always exceptions. Generally, the most successful sales agents are relationship builders, and they go and they kind of leave a wake in the behind them of a bit of a mess. And so you need that admin person to go, oh, this goes here and that goes there. You button this up and clean this up. So that's your awesome counterpart. That's going to really be a game changer. But you know, you have to go through. You have to make some mistakes. You know, you have to go through that process and realize, okay, that's next time. Next time I'm going to do this. But that's a really important first role. And
Can I
just
say it?
real quick. Yeah, go ahead.
You go.
At first admin, and then at some point you're gonna have more leads than you can personally handle, and more demands for your time for showings and that sort of thing. And that's where you start thinking about, if you want, bringing on some type of showing assistant or even a buyer's agent to help leverage that part. And then the last hat you take off, if you want to keep doing that, is the listing hat. Tony's never taken it off. But we have this 1-2 punch thing, which allows me to be thinking about growing the business while she's rocking it on the listing side. And so that's generally the flow of building the team, and of course the MREA book and model has a lot more info about that.
I was nervous about bringing on an admin, and I'm making this number up, but I'm like, we do not have $40,000 a year to spend on an admin. We're barely making any money ourselves. So what I would encourage you to, I thought about it the wrong way, is to think about, you're not thinking about it for $40,000 a year. You're thinking about the next 30 days. And then you're thinking about the next 30 days. And so you're just committing to a pay period at a time. And I don't mean that to sound callous, but think of it as what value can this person add in the next 30 days? And I also think something that you have to be very aware of when you bring on people to your team, if you start growing a team, David and I are responsible for everything that goes on in that team. It does not take your responsibility hat off, but it means you're training someone, you're showing them how to do it. But if a mistake is made on our team, even though I may never have seen it or touched it, it is my responsibility because I own the team. So you can't think an admin, then, oh, well, John, you messed that up, right? No, you've got to learn extreme responsibility as a business owner to train, coach, help, and you can't come in here and throw everything at them and expect them to know how to do it. You've got to have the time to really train. We did, I think, that wrong a little bit too, is we just, here I'm so busy, figure it out. And I think we've done a really good job the last 5-6 years of training and cultivating and spending time with our people to show them like how we want it done in a way.
Well, and I
right?
think leading too, and that, leading is exactly what you're talking about, but one other mindset thought on that, like 1 month at a time, is the other thing is, what is your GCI per transaction, right? How many more must I sell in order to afford this person? And really, when they take all of this time off of your plate, how much more time do you have to go earn that? Plus, they bring their database.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. Just the quick clarification, KW gives us the 30, 60, 90 plan, so a really good rule of thumb is a 90-day. Like take that salary divided by 4, that's what you're committing to, right? There's, unless they, steal money from your purse, you shouldn't hire someone in the first couple weeks, so that's a trade, you're ramping them up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So plan on 90 days, but that's a lot more digestible to think of mentally than to bite off an annual salary. At 90 days, it will be clear one way or the other. Either this person is going to just do exactly what Rebecca said, take so much off my plate that's gonna free me up to go bring in more business that then will easily pay for them and give me a return on that investment. It's not a spend, it's an investment in your business if you do it right. If at the 90-day mark, it's not clear that that's happening, then, it needs to be really clear.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is just to tie down a point Tony made. When you bring a person into your world and you ask them to take something off of your plate, it's a two-way exchange. A lot of people make the mistake that I just give you that, now it's your problem. But if John's taking something off of my plate to help me be successful, my new responsibility in exchange for him doing that for me is to ensure that he's successful in that task, in that role. So it's not like, oh, John, I'm done with that. It's like, no, you help me by taking this off my plate, and I'm here to say, what do you need, John? How can I support you? Because my job now is to make sure you're able to do the thing that I asked you to do. So you don't get to drop and run, you get to drop and raise up and do your thing while checking in and supporting. And that's, I think, a mistake a lot of people do in their first admin relationship, is just here dumping all these problems on John and not taking
Not equipping him to.
the ownership and accountability of, I'm here to support you to make that.
Well, awesome, so it's like 9 minutes to just about 10
No,
minutes
we can
left.
stay till like 2:15.
Okay, so we do have some more time. I do know that we had several questions on Zoom, so I wanted to go to Zoom, get their questions. If you guys wanna come off mute. And I know specifically Sylvia had a couple questions.
She has to go.
Oh, she had to go.
Yeah.
So, well, she can watch the rest of the recording and your big why. She wanted to know about your big why. How many investment properties do you have or do you recommend?
Yeah, so specifically our big why, I mean, we were teachers before. I told you a little bit about it in my story, which was, making an impact on people, and then within our own family, obviously, that's regardless of anything we'll ever do in real estate, our biggest dent in the universe will be the family that we create and how that will ripple into the universe forever. And so that's how I use that to think about keeping things in check sometimes, right? Because it doesn't matter. It's cool to sell a lot of real estate. It's cool to have some things happen, but at the end of the day, that's their biggest opportunity to dent the universe or to ripple into the universe is those kiddos. And so it's easy to get that backwards sometimes. And so we remember that. Our mission on our team is moving families forward. I do that because it's big up on our wall. And that applies internally and externally. So with our clients, they've got a goal, they've got a vision, they've got a dream. And they're stuck because this real estate thing is such an obstacle. If they're, trying to get closer to someone, they gotta sell the house first. If they're trying to come down here, they've gotta find the place, and so we're helping move families forward on their journey. And then our other big why of this team thing, which is something you need to think about, it does not make sense for everyone to have a big team at all. We just came from this conference in Nashville with a bunch of team owners from across the country, and it's just the common joke in any of these things, like, when are you gonna blow up your team and just go sell some real estate with an assistant? That's always every team owner's like go nuclear option is blow it up, keep your one assistant, and then just go sell real estate, because you can make really, really, really good money doing that. And you don't need to invite all this other people stress that comes into your world as you're trying to make it bigger.
Animal
So
stress.
yeah, and a lot of people will grow big for the wrong reasons. And so that's a big piece of advice, is don't do it because you should do it.
Don't do it if you wanna make money, because this team thing, I don't know when that's gonna start.
Yeah, there has to be something else in it for you. And so there's a long way around to the big why question. So for us, moving families forward is also growing humans on our team, helping see them change their financial trajectory, as they're then able to help families out there. And it's hard. You have to get fulfillment from it. If it was just about more dollars and getting our time back, this is not the winning formula, but we wake up excited because we get to talk to these people important to them and see their successes and help them through their challenges, and we get fulfillment from that. So that's you, the team may make sense, and you can do very well with it financially. It's just not there was several years in there where there's just no money. Like we were, there was a year we made $19,000 profit on our team, and that's with two of us, working full time. We could have done a lot of different things and done a lot better with a lot less stress, for that year. Now, we've had other years since then that have been much, much, much better, and you can't get to the one without having the other. But that's a long way of answering the big why. It's about helping humans, uplifting other people, and the team is a big mechanism for us to do that.
Do you have investment properties?
Yeah, we do, guys. You gotta. So this is one thing. It's just again at this conference, and it's full of team owners, and they're like, "What's the difference between being rich and wealthy? Rich versus wealthy." Someone want to take a crack at that, sir?
Well, to me, rich is just having money that can stop.
Yeah.
Wealth is having, I guess, wealth is something you can pass down and that doesn't stop.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, well said, Julian. So rich, let's use a profession that's considered highly paid, like a doctor, right? A doctor could have a really high income, but if they're not smart about what they do with it, as soon as that income stops, poof, it's all gone. Building wealth is about owning assets that grow in value over time and then kick off passive income that ideally is greater than your cost of living, right? So you're living, financial freedom. Gary Keller defines wealth as a great plenty in the areas of life that matter. So he expands it beyond just the financial piece, but your health, your wellness, your fulfillment, your contribution, all these other areas. So yes, you have, guys, I harp on my team all the time, like we are on the forefront of the most powerful wealth building vehicle in the history of the United States of America, which basically means in the history of the world, right? Which is real estate ownership. I'm in a men's group for, entrepreneurs, and not everyone's in real estate. It's a nationwide thing called GoBundance, founded by a Keller Williams guy, David Osborne. Anyway, there's guys from all industries in there.
Brian.
Yeah, Brian Wentz, yes, that's right. He's a GoBro. There's guys from all industries in there. They all do different things. They all invest in real estate. It's the uniform. So I'm the weirdo who invests in real estate and does real estate for the business. No matter what these very, very, very successful people do in the financial world to earn their income, they all grow wealth by investing in real estate. You guys are on the forefront. You know about the best deals. You're paying attention to it. Again, I'm going to quote Gary Keller a lot, but he says what we do as consumers, we pay attention to the values of the wrong things, right? Like I'll pick on, I'll use you.
Oh Lord, I don't like.
You probably know, a bag, what it should cost and what a nice one costs. And you probably have a sense of a certain bag of a certain brand, you probably have a sense of, oh, that's appropriate, or no, that's way too expensive, or that's right for that. Like if it was a Gucci bag for $50, you'd be like, good, buy 10 of them.
Yeah.
Right. But do we have that sense of clarity around the real estate opportunities that we see? And shouldn't we, right? Because that's the thing, the bag doesn't do anything for your family as well. So yeah, long story short, I just got to preach. You need to be thinking about how do I stack cash? It's having a budget, it's living below my means, it's stacking cash so that I'm equipped to be in position to take advantage of the wealth building opportunities of owning real estate.
We're in the strongest buyer's market we've seen forever. Buy a house this year.
Yeah, make an
Figure
offer,
it out.
make an offer,
Figure
make an
it
offer,
out,
make
buy
an
a
offer,
house
seller
this year.
financing, just
Do
go nuts.
whatever you need to buy
We
a house this year.
we have 7 doors here locally that we own and rent, long-term rentals, and then we have an investment property in Georgia that's a short-term rental, but it's really just our family's happy summer vacation spot.
I'll see that on Facebook.
Yeah, that's the fun.
Level.
And we're looking, and then another thing, they were just harping on this at the conference, that this is get with your tax person, and you should have a tax person. We have a unique benefit because we are considered real estate professionals. So we get a special tax status where our real estate investments can offset our income. And so you have the opportunity, if you're buying real estate, you shouldn't pay taxes, is the long story short. If you can basically buy a property a year, depending on your circumstances, you have the ability to offset most or even all of your tax bill totally legally. Just instead of paying 30% of your income to the government every year, you can use that chunk to buy more investment property. Which one do you think is going to do you better over the long term? Yeah, so that's some there's ridiculous advantages. The game is rigged in the favor of people who own real estate in our country. Do you want to be on the side of the rules are slanted for, or do you want to be going against the grain? To me, it's a really easy choice. So there's been many years we didn't buy real estate. There's been years I should have looked back, right, and wish we'd done more. Right now, we're very purposeful about it. And there's times you're just in the season of, I need to stack the cash. That's okay to be in that season, but ask, am I living below my means so that I have excess? And can I hold on to that excess and grow it so that I can put myself in position? And that's where if you're not in that season to do something yet, what can you control right now? And it has to go back to your budget to live below your means and get there.
Perfect. And anyone on Zoom, if you have questions, let us know. Who has questions here?
I just wanted to know what was your recommendation to new agents who are just starting out to generate business?
Get out, run, yeah. Sorry,
You're in the
New
best time to
agents,
start in real estate.
just general, or just general advice, or did you have a specific question for new
Just
agents?
in general, because we were speaking of open houses and that's kind of what we push, you
Yes.
know, to do open house after open house after open house.
Yes.
Yes, we'd love to sell the house that we're in, you know, don't get me wrong, but it's not really the main motivation.
Yes.
It's to gain, you know, leads for, you know, to gather the people's information when hopefully they do come through your open house.
Oh,
Yeah.
open house all day.
The open house is the
years, we
only
don't
place
have
in real
something
estate
else.
where a person will raise their hand and say, I'm interested in buying or selling. Right,
Yes.
that was walking off the street, that doesn't happen, sellers don't walk in off the street and say, can I interview you, you know, that's my house. So it's a phenomenal opportunity to get face to face, which matters, right? The numbers say 70% of people will work with the first real estate agent that they make significant contact with. 70%. Now, that number is good and bad. Why would I say that? Why do we love and hate that statistic?
Cause it could be a bad agent that, yeah.
Does it make you wonder how some of our, I'm not disparaging anyone, but there's people we'll run into in the business that you're like, huh? You know, how did, because of the 70% rule, because for whatever reason, real estate is a personal transaction and people wanna do stuff with people they like, so they're not interviewing us as they would maybe a surgeon. You know, how many of these have you done? The sellers will more, but on the buyer side, it's typically just, I like you, Julian, you're cool, I'm getting good vibes from you. You seem to know what you're talking about, so it feels like a chore to go talk to Wayne. We already connected, I'd rather just work with you, or if I met Wayne first, now it's a chore to talk to Julian, right? So how do you be the first one? And open houses is a huge way
Well,
to
and
do that.
Shannon, David has banana like antidotes, just in case you were wondering.
Do you, David? What do you call that yellow fruit?
Banana.
Yeah.
It's my class, I make it say it. But I think that you can't just go sit at an open house on a Sunday and hope to build business. You have to be purposeful about it. So if you get 7 couples in through your open house, that's a phenomenal open house. If you do nothing with the data you collected from those 7 people, you wasted your Sunday. What do you gotta start talking to them, emailing them properties. Hey, I noticed that the one in Greenbrook popped up with the pool. Do you wanna look at it? If you just sit there on a Sunday and you're busy and you feel good because you were at work for a couple hours, but if you're not gathering data and going deep with the people that you are meeting, then the open houses don't matter. So Shannon, being purposeful about them is great. And not everyone's gonna sign in, they're not all gonna give you your email address, but there's gonna be a certain number that are. And you better stick top of mind with those people. That's what makes a successful open house. That's how I start. That's how I got momentum, was doing open houses and building my database that way.
If I can add to that, and I will give you all the same advice, and the rule of numbers is some of you will heed it and others won't, even though I'm saying it to the same of you. We've gone into 2 different real estate markets now, North Carolina and then again here, and shown up differently than the average. And when you show up differently, and good and bad in our industry, it's a low professional bar. Low because it's easy to get in, not easy, your test is hard, but you didn't go to 4 years of college, you didn't go $200,000 in debt to get your real estate license compared to some of these other professions. So the society doesn't regard us very highly. And that's good and bad, right? It's bad because we get lumped in sometimes, but it's good because it gives us an opportunity to outshine expectations. And so when you go to that open house, you need to have a chip on your shoulder that says, I'm gonna rock this thing and show up so much better than anyone else that they've interacted with. And it's gonna require extra preparation. A coach would say, don't just sit there and smoke the hopium, right? Hoping they come in and love the house and you just get to write an offer and fill in the blanks. That's not you adding value, that's you getting lucky. So how do you add value at the open house? Anticipate that they will not like that house. Most likely they won't. Odds are 99% that they won't. Okay, what would be some reasons that they might not like it? Oh, it's only got the 2 bedroom, or maybe it needs a 3rd, or it doesn't have a pool. This one does. find them some options, anticipate those objections. No, we don't love it. Oh, you know what? There's one actually right at the same price point that does have a pool right down the street. Here till 4, but I'd love to make an appointment and show that to you at 5 o'clock today. Is that, does that work, right? Like have a list, I can email you. That's another way to get contact information is how can I add value? I can email you, 3 or 4 other listings. Yeah, property disclosure, 3 or 4 other listings that you all should consider. A couple that just came on the market that look amazing, right? Like offering value and making sure that you're showing up in a different way than just, oh, what do you think? Do you like this house? Do you wanna buy it?
Sometimes when I do them, I'll print off a couple comps that are, in the neighborhood that are available and for sale, just because, well, when I first started doing, I'd lay them on the counter too, but now I've learned not to, just once I build that relationship too, then I'll bring it out and say, hey, here's a couple other things, would you be interested in looking at this?
Yeah.
I tend to try to put them on Facebook as an event, I do a video when I'm there.
Fantastic.
You
You are
know,
purposeful about your open house,
yes,
and that's amazing.
yes.
Yep,
I think
absolutely.
that, I was just speaking to another new guy yesterday, I think it's important to have your branded signs, because while you're out there working, every other agent, everybody who's buying, looking or selling, sees your name, they see your number.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, that's a go-getter right there, every time I come out or every time I go somewhere, I see this person's out working. So I think those are a lot of, things that make it purposeful,
Yeah. So you knock on some neighbors' doors and invite them?
I'll be real honest with you, that is the only thing that I've not done is door knocked, I've not door knocked, I have not door
Sure.
knocked.
Well, to me, there's two types of door knocking. One is just going by neighborhood door to door. To me, that's the hardest one. And some people are successful with it. To me, inviting to an open house is not what I would call door knocking. It's literally just inviting. You're being social. You're like, hey,
6.
yeah.
So 6 houses right around.
Yeah, 5 each way,
Yeah.
10 across, you make your own rule, but it's the low hanging fruit of, hey, we're doing this thing. Wasn't sure if you're aware that your neighbors are selling their home, they've asked me to sell their home, and I just wanted to make sure.
And they're
to invite
future
you.
sellers that you're door knocking to.
Yeah.
Inviting to see how you promote.
They're absolutely future sellers that are gonna impress. That feedback's gonna get back to your seller. The other thing, you can make it exclusive to them, like let's say your open house starts at 1. Door knock starting at 12 and say, I'm having it open just for neighbors from 12:30 to 1. Right, it gives them a little like, ooh,
But when
special club, yeah.
I've noticed that when the neighbors come over, they don't wanna give you any information. They
Yeah,
never wanna give you their name or any
But
information.
if you've already door knocked them, you know where they
You know
live.
what they live.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
well, I mean, if they don't have any
Yeah.
interest, if they won't even give me their name and number, it seems to be a waste of time
Yeah.
to me.
There's gonna be representatives that I think will be like that, for sure. Yeah.
and I would challenge you to think about it a little bit differently, right? What's the goal with those neighbors coming over?
To create new contacts and build relationships, I guess.
Yeah, and I think to impress them with the work ethic, like you mentioned, show them that you show up different. They're noticing, if your sign's in the yard, now is this your listing or is it someone they're letting you?
Yeah, just hosting.
Yeah, so that might be, I can understand you're feeling like I didn't get anything out of this, but I encourage you to think big picture, long game, you're honing your skills, you're practicing building
Sure.
relationships. If they live nearby, they're gonna wanna talk about the neighborhood. Oh, what do you love? It's generally easier to get people talking about what's your name and email, like that's a very direct ask. But how long you been in the neighborhood? What do you love most about it? Which of the houses is yours? And then to her point, you go find them, send them a handwritten card. Hey, it was so nice talking to you, right? You can grab that info. Anything I can do for you, here you go. And now you impressed them once and now you impressed them twice.
Yeah, if you bombard them when they walk in the door asking for their contact information,
Yeah.
they'll never give it to you. You've got to build rapport and you have to want to give them something. So I actually have created a market analysis for the entire neighborhood. I'm emailing like 10 of your neighbors this afternoon when I'm done here. I'll send yours, what's your email address? I didn't ask them, do you want me to? I said, I'm doing this for like 10 other people. What is your email address? I'm setting a market analysis at the end of this. Yeah, I'm setting a market analysis at the end of this open house. She'll have it by 5 o'clock tonight. What's your email? When you say, what is your email and not, do you want me to? They feel weird not telling you, so
Right.
Don't ask yes and no questions, that's for
Yeah.
sure. Who else has
Thank you.
questions?
you're welcome, huh?
Husband and wife team, right? Kind of, or at least husband and wife.
Something.
Yeah, do you guys have your own separate schedules and
Yeah.
do you have like a set day off a week or like how do you have quality time together? That's what I'm trying to get at, like how,
Sounds like you're looking for a break.
Yeah. No, I'm just intrigued, how you guys,
How it works.
how it works, because obviously we're, we have this kind of like dynamic every week, yeah.
Do you have definition in your roles?
Yeah, do you guys do 2 different things on your team?
Well, he has strengths and I have strengths.
Yeah.
And I'm the negotiations is my jam, I love it.
Okay.
And he's the comms king, that's what I
Yeah.
call him, he's really great at that, so that's how we bounce off of each other, but generally for sellers, we work together. And for
So-
buyers, we work separately.
I would say we weren't with KW at the time, but we went to a KW training in North Carolina, and it was a dude, and he's like, one of the things I can tell you when you have a partner, I can, sure.
Joseph Kowalski, yeah.
Thank you. But he said, define your roles, separate your roles, and do not cross back over. So we have very different jobs. David is the CEO of our company. He can tell you our budget and our marketing spend and how many people on our team. I can't tell you any of that stuff because I am a listing agent. So one of the things that was really smart is very early on, we defined our roles and we do not cross back over. So because really, I mean, we are both working all of the time.
Yeah.
But because I'm an agent, I tend to be negotiating and on the phone on the weekends and things like that, and David can shut it off a little bit more. Our team still comes to him for a lot of things, but no, we both work all the time.
Right.
We don't necessarily, we need to get better about, it's just the nature of this thing. But you're in the office, you're pretty much in the office and I'm all over the place.
Right.
Yeah, so you guys get to decide what makes sense for you and what your goals are. You know, the one benefit and challenge of the husband-wife kind of teams. Sometimes I see them doing things together a lot.
Mm.
And if the goal is to be together, you did it. But a lot of times there's overlap and duplication of efforts. And so our attitude has been, how do we get further faster? You know, so instead of you sellers, you have two of us, one person can be the listing agent. They don't, you know, if that's part of your value proposition, like, hey, you get two of us, that's okay. But maybe in your practice, maybe that's part of your listing spiel, but in practice, there should be one point of contact. It gets a little confusing and blurry, and you be that person and free up the mental bandwidth of however it works for the other one of you to be doing another thing. Otherwise, you're kind of stacking two humans with the same amount of work, just for the sake of being together. You know, I think where if you could think of yourself as two people with complementary skill sets and ask, what's my highest and best use to this business? What's the thing where I can do to grow it and push it forward? I would highly look at the KPA. We looked at us, you know, and that listing in the mornings we had another listing early on, and you know, I'm the teacher, I love guiding people through, I'm the warm fuzzy guy, I love buyers, I love them. Sellers, like, I'm just stressed the whole time. Like, do they like me? They hate me. What's going on? I don't wanna talk to them, and you know, and I think this girl, stuff just rolls off her shoulders, like it just doesn't, she doesn't carry it. You know, she's able to have a tough conversation and then move on, and she's happy over here, and I'm like, I'm still in that conversation. So we realized really early on that she is more suited, and ego will step in, like, I can do everything, right? You wanna, I can do it all, I can do this, I can be good here, and that's true, you can, but you're not gonna thrive at the highest level focusing on everything. So do you wanna pat yourself on the back that you can do it all, or do you wanna really specialize and thrive? And that's been the magic for us. So we said early on, Tony's with sellers, I'm with buyers. And then as we grew our team, I can just morph in more leadership, buyers agents, I was with them, she was free to be the seller's agent, and then we've added now, it just kind of built from there. But I think you get that the beautiful part about two people, one bucket of the relationship thing, it's cool. The other thing is we do different jobs, so it's not like we're sitting in every meeting and every conversation together. So we get to catch up at the end of the day, like, what happened with you? How did that conversation go? And we actually have a conversation about work like a regular spouse couple that don't work together, and it's interesting, and we know the parts, but I just don't know the details. That's one of my favorite things we talk about, like, fill me in on that. What happened with the septic tank?
But not at 11 PM at night, right? Not at
We're not
11
talking about my
PM at
septic
night.
tank right
Well,
now.
listen, so then boundaries is a whole different
Can I say
thing.
something? Paul, I see your hand. We had to learn, I was terrible, we had to learn how to have a business partner conversation that is not a husband-wife conversation. I remember early on, I made a mistake with a commission and it cost us like $6,000, and we did not have $6,000 to spare, and it was my fault. And the CEO of our company is rightfully so fussy at me, and I am sobbing in the parking lot because I made that mistake, and I'll never forget, this is when it differentiated in my mind, because I'm in the parking lot sobbing about this commission mistake I made.
Because I wasn't yelling at her while she was sobbing. Like, that was a later situation. Yeah.
No, I'm like, stairs, and I'm on a curb in the parking lot of Keller Williams sobbing, my eyes out. And David texted me and he said, your husband is coming to get you.
Aw, that's
Not your CEO that's mad at you that you made this huge mistake. Your husband is coming to get you. And you came down and hugged you. You're like, it's okay. Whatever partnership you are in, you've got to learn how to have a business partner conversation that is not your relationship. Those are two very different conversations. We've gotten better over the years. We're not good at it, but you've got to learn how to have, because I'm like, you think I'm a terrible mom? And he's like, are you talking about? I never said that, you know, so that, we had to learn that.
We're in the boundaries thing, so I tend to spin stuff at night, and it always would be 8:30, 9:30.
I'm watching Bravo and I want to hear it.
Doing Bravo, and I'm like, hey, and I'm like trying to bring up this thing, and I had to learn, it took me 1,000 times to learn it the hard way. It didn't go well, and so then, okay, we could have that conversation tomorrow morning when we're both kind of in work mode in the workspace, so. Building those boundaries is not perfect, it's never perfect, we have our challenges with it. But you do your best to protect your family time, your you time, with date night Saturday. We will, I'm sure we'll talk about real estate because our friends are gonna ask us about it, it's couples date. So it'll come up, but it'll be fun, it won't be stressful that way.
Okay, thank you.
And Paul, I know you have another question, and then you've gotta
We
run.
answered a lot about prioritizing, I think, a little bit, your tasks, but how do you avoid burnout? Do you even have burnout? I feel like you
Yes.
don't.
Oh, the last 3 weeks of my life, I'm about to die. I'm out of production, I'm done in 3 weeks. It's just, in real estate, you are always out of balance. Like people talk about life balance, and I don't know how to do that. But what I've learned how to do is counterbalance. So I've been crazy for the past 3 weekends, working almost all weekend. I'm very out of balance. He just got back home midnight last night, so I was kind of like single parenting for 3 nights. I don't think I bathed my child for 3 days because it was just, she was up late because I was working. So this weekend I need to counterbalance back. So it's not about balance. I don't know how to achieve balance when you do this job, but I know I've been going hard for 3 weeks and I need to take a 2-day counterbalance back. So it's more about counterbalancing than ever figuring this out.
And that won't always happen in a day, so we're in a season, right, we have 3 weeks of traveling with our kids in June.
Yeah.
And so 2 months ago, we were like, look, we just need to hit it hard between
really
now and
hard.
then.
Really
You
don't,
know,
yeah.
we're gonna slash some expenses and we're gonna push hard on the business lead gen side, especially Tony's production. And she's been grinding herself to the ground, but we also have, the light at the end of the tunnel with this trip and knowing that we'll be in a good spot. I love Tony Robbins, and he says, activity without purpose is what drains us. So a lot of us have task lists and things we have to do. Taking a minute, burnout, some people say it doesn't exist, some people say it does. I think it comes down to energy management, right? Because if it's your internal passion, some people say, I've never worked a day in my life, I do this thing. We've worked in real estate. And I love a lot of it and I hate a lot of it. But if you can check in like the why, we talked about the big why do I do this? We get pulled forward by connecting to our purpose in an area. And so pull energy is almost unlimited. If I'm being pulled to this thing, push energy, you have to grind, you have to grit your teeth and make yourself get through this hard stuff. That is limited and you will run out and you will hurt yourself, and we've done it. So you have to pay attention, how much of my day is something pulling me towards something where I'm energized by it versus how much I'm forcing myself to do this thing. Because if those ratios are out of whack, that's where you're gonna get to where you go. If you can connect the dots and say, yeah, this isn't my favorite task, but I remind myself that by doing this thing, I get this other thing and that lights me up. That's a different way to frame it that can energize. But
Where are you guys going?
We're going to Europe
Oh, yeah.
and our cabin, we're going to Georgia, but I've never been to Europe in my life.
Everyone?
We're going to Spain and Rome.
Yeah.
Excited. And then-
Will you be working when you're gone?
No, thank you for asking. I usually do. I really do work a lot when I'm gone. I'm not, no, I'm not. Thank you, Erin. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing
Europe
it.
is
Yeah.
too beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, we're going to Europe for 8 or 9 days, I think.
Yes, and then our cabin, which
And then our
come
Georgia cabin.
decompressed by the lake. Then,
Yeah.
which is real estate that we own, which is rented out not the rest of the year, but a lot of other parts of the year.
Yeah.
So
Love it.
take advantage.
Well, we appreciate you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Doctor appointments.
I will put a little plug, so I love to have these conversations, and guys, I mean this, if you wanna role play, like, somebody said something, like, how to talk to yourself, I will role play that with you, I live to do that stuff. Also, if you go on Instagram and follow Tony Zarghami Coaching, thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
I post twice a week, like 60-second little scripts about how to talk to your seller or the market or whatever. I just love to put that out there, but please, I'll help you with anything I can. Anytime.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Hope we got something.
Thank you.
Let's see you out there in that crazy market.
Yeah.
Awesome market.
Mark,
Yeah,
big
me too.
silver.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, we really have to get our kids to the doctor.